Hello everyone, I hope you all are fine and doing your studies well.
Today's topic, crop production and management. Under this topic, we are going to read about the nutrient management, for which we should know what is manure and fertilizer. Then we will be reading about irrigation patterns and cropping patterns for the improvement of crop production, which is the ultimate goal of increasing the food grains for the people of our country.
You can make compost in your own garden by the help of the leaves or the vegetable peels or even the kitchen waste and give it to your plants for growing safely. These are highly nutritious, but they are not nutrient specific, but you can use them as they don't have any ill effects on your plants. So let us see how to make it. What you have to do is that this I have done few months back in any sorts of bag. You can take, say, cow dung. You can take the dry leaves, or else you can even take the eggshells with the soil, mix them with the soil and cover them like this. And keep it aside for at least few months without opening it. After opening it, you will find that it has converted into nice compost, which gives good healthy plants.
This is Epsom salt, highly absorbed in water and is taken up by the plants readily. Magnesium sulfate, chemical name. This is a chemical fertilizer. This is Shufola, common name in the market, but it is called DAP. That is diammonium phosphate. It's a chemical fertilizer. Now this one is a chemical fungicide and this one is a biological fungicide, Trichoderma viride, which is acting as a biological fungicide for the plants. Manures and fertilizers are important for the improvement of crop production. Manures are organic in origin. They can hold the water and they can improve the health of the soil. Many manures are like, for example, compost, green manure, etc. Fertilizers, on the other hand, are nutrient specific, but if they are used in excess, can cause a deleterious effect on the soil's health, which can be, of course, overcome by means of organic farming practices and some other agricultural practices.
So a farmer must have a perfect balance between the manure and the fertilizers which he uses in his agricultural land to improve the crop production. If he continuously uses the fertilizers, that can have a negative impact on his soil's health, and sooner he will have an economic loss in the years to come. So a perfect balance between manure and fertilizers can only lead to the production of food grains in a proper quantity. Organic farming is a farming system with minimum or almost no chemical fertilizers like your herbicides, pesticides, fertilizers, etc. Because if it is being regularly used, soil can become too acidic or it can become too alkaline. So always motto should be towards the sustainable form of agriculture. The next topic in our chapter is about the irrigation. India is a country in which the people are 70% of the population is engaged in doing the agricultural practices. So water is an important part of agricultural practices, as because without water neither the seeds are going to germinate nor the further development of the plants will take place, as the plants take up all the nutrients in the form of solution. So water is an important thing. And in India, mostly the agriculture is a rain fed. That is, the agricultural practices depend upon the rain. But other than this, the supply of water to the agricultural land also depends upon the water resources which are available in nature, like for example the wells, like for example the canals, the river lift system. River lift system is a system in which the canal flow is not sufficient and it is irregular. because of which directly the water is taken from the river and is subjected to the agricultural field. Then tanks, small tanks are made as reservoir for giving water to the plants. So this way the irrigation is done. But besides, you have read it in class 8 about the modern technique of irrigation, that is your sprinkler system, and that is your drip irrigation, which is very economical to store water also and for irrigating the field. Now, the next step for improvement in crop production is cropping pattern. It has been noticed that if the same type of crops are grown in the field, then that may not always result into good food production. So there are various cropping patterns which the farmers are following. One such cropping pattern is a mixed cropping, where 2 or more crops are simultaneously grown in the same place. For example, the wheat and the gram. Always a leguminous plant in combination with some cereal crops are kept in terms of your mixed cropping. But here there is a disadvantage, and the disadvantage is what? The disadvantage is that is at the time of harvesting it is difficult to harvest if the crops are mixed together. So sorting of the crops will be difficult. So the next very important and very easy mechanism of the planting the plants is called as your intercropping technique. Intercropping, here also we are planting 2 or more than 2 crops together in the same field, but in a definite pattern. So when they are ordered in a definite manner, then they have a definite row, so harvesting becomes easier. And all the crops do not take up the same kind of nutrient. As a result, that is the nutrient balance is maintained of the soil, and the plants also grow safely and nicely, and the food production is improved a lot. So this is how depending upon the different cropping patterns, the agricultural products, that is the food grains, can be increased. And crop rotation, of course, you have read it in your earlier class, where there is a definite succession of growing different types of crops in a same piece of land, that is a leguminous crop followed by some other crops, so that the nitrogen content of the soil is maintained.
Crop protection management.
The next activity to improve the crop production, food grains, is crop protection management. After the crops are grown, the food grains are there in the field. What next? Now the food grains are infected by 3 things in the crop field. The first one is your weeds. Now weeds are the unwanted plants which grow along with the crop plants, which compete with them for space, for the nutrient, sunlight, and thus restricting the growth of the crop plants, which is our target. So these have to be removed by either physical means or by means of some chemicals. The next thing comes is your pests. Now in the field, especially during the time when the grains are formed, they are infected by various kinds of pests. So the standing crop, if are infected by the pests, then definitely the crop productivity is hampered a lot. The next is some pathogens, as we animals are also infected by various kinds of microorganisms. Crop plants are also infected by the microorganisms. Now these microorganisms can be bacteria, these can be fungus, this can be virus. So those pathogens have to be also controlled by means of some biological control as well as by some chemical controls. So these are the 3 things. First is the weed, next is the pest, next is the pathogen, which has to be controlled if we want to protect our crops and the loss due to these things. The control measures which can be followed to control the 3 things. For the weeds, we can use some trowels if we want to manually uproot the weeds, but these are not always effective. So sometimes we are using some chemicals. Now these chemicals includes your weedicides. Now weedicides such as your 2,4-D butachlor, which you have read earlier, these are the chemical substances which can kill the weeds, but it will not be affecting the crop plants. Biological control of the weeds. There are certain weeds like opuntia. Opuntia is a kind of cactus type of plant which grows in the sugar cane field, which can be controlled by means of some insects which is called as your cochineal insects. So cochineal insects are capable of
totally eating the open-share plant from the field and destroying them so that they do not compete with the sugarcane plantation. So this is a sort of biological control of the weeds. If we talk about the pests also can be controlled by means of the chemicals like your pesticides or the insecticides, and biologically also there are some insects which can kill the other harmful pests which infects our food grains, like for example your ladybirds. Now ladybirds are the biological control for the pests. Pathogens. Microorganisms too can be controlled by means of your chemical and biological means. Chemical means the microorganisms can be killed like fungicides. In the starting of the video I have shown you some fungicides. Now biologically there are also fungicides like I told you about the Trichoderma viride, which is a soil fungus which will be growing along the soil and propagating itself by producing its hyphae, entering into the hyphae of the harmful fungus and killing them. So this is a sort of biological control for the pathogens, which is the soil-borne pathogens. So this way we can control the weeds, we can control the pests, we can control the pathogens. Of course, scientists along with these techniques are also thinking about some kind of GMO, that is genetically modified organisms. Now what are these GMO? That is introducing a gene of interest from some microorganism into the that is your chromosome of the crop plant, so that now when the crop plant will be growing, it will be automatically not affected by that of the that is your pests. Like for example, I will give you here one example of BT cotton variety. Now BT word has come from the name called Bacillus thuringiensis. Now this Bacillus thuringiensis, one gene has been extracted and it has been incorporated into the DNA of the cotton plant. And as a result, now when the cotton plant will be now growing, the cotton plant, if it is infected by that of the caterpillar, then the caterpillar it acts as a kind of chemical substance which will be completely degrading its elementary system and killing it. So there is no need of spraying any pesticides or any insecticides. It will be controlled naturally because it has the BT gene in it. So that is how the control can be done. So this is also coming under your crop protection management. Protection during the storage. Now while the grains are produced, harvested, now control of those food grains from the pests as well as from the pathogens is also a necessary step. Now how can we do so? At first, the first and the foremost thing is to dry them. Now sun drying is the most important thing, which will be letting it less of moisture in it. So as a result, the microbial infestation will be very low in them. And later on, they can be put into the gunny bags or into the grain silos and can be transported or even can be stored for a longer period of time. As you know, the grain silos, there is a temperature control and moisture control, due to which the grains can remain fresh for a longer period of time. So this is about your total of the crop variety improvement, crop production management and crop protection management, which together will be leading to the formation of good production of food grains and solving the problem of food crisis in our country. So if we follow these steps properly, definitely the problem of food grains shortage will be reduced to a larger extent.